You digging on that Nicki Minaj?
It's a lot to handle this early in the morning.
It sure is. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off. James, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? How was your vacation?
It was great. It's good to be back. That was a lie.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Not good to be back.
It's better today than it was yesterday. It's always the first day always kind of sucks a little bit, but back in the groove. If I could only get the name of the show right, that would be great.
I'll get there eventually.
I don't even know what radio station I'm working on. This is James Stevenson from Precision Auto Repair in West Springfield. Here to talk about cars. It's Boys in the Hood. We've got some good questions this week. And a couple ways that you can submit questions. You can log on to Lazer99.3.com and submit them there. Or also, maybe even easier for you, log on to the Precision Auto Repair Facebook page and submit your questions there. I understand a lot of people are really turning on to the Facebook for the questions, James, yeah?
Yeah, it seems to we seem to have a pretty big response on Facebook. You know, the first month or so we did just through the website, but people love the Facebook. So yeah, send your questions there too.
Now, before we get in, I wish we had a camera going the other way with all the equipment that you've set up here. He's got this big, gigantic light, a little microphone set up because we are recording today's thing. We're gonna put it all over social media.
Don't look directly at it, though.
No, if you look directly at it, no, you see spots for the rest of your life here. Let's get right to the questions. This first one comes from Jessica Cruz of West Springfield. She says, "Hey, I recently smelled a maple syrup smell coming from my engine. It then overheated and my temp gauge went crazy. I had to get a hose replaced, but the smell, what is that? And what is that? Oh, is that a warning to get off the road?" She says.
The smell that sweet maple syrup type smell, that's a coolant smell. When coolant leaks, it can hit different things on the exhaust, or just the hot coolant itself can kind of steam up and create that sweet smell. It's definitely a bad odor. This time of year, it's not uncommon to see a lot of coolant leaks. Sometimes it's either, or I guess the best indicators of coolant leaks are that smell. It'll smell like like maple syrup, like she described. The second is that you'll notice no heat at idle. You know, the car will just be kind of sitting there idling at a stoplight, and you've got cool air coming through the vents. And then as you accelerate, you begin to force a lot of that coolant into what's called the heater core, and it gives you nice hot air coming through the vents. That's always an indication that you've got some type of a leak or a bleed problem.
So is that a point where you're going to see your temperature gauge start to skyrocket as well? I mean, because obviously you're not getting coolant through the system.
You can. So anytime that you have a leak and you have that, say, no heat issue, it's usually because the system's not bled properly, right? So if it's leaking, you're going to get what's called an air pocket. That air pocket will expand, and it can create all kinds of issues. It can destroy engines. I mean, literally. It's a very violent pressure inside that system. They're not meant to handle that amount of pressure. They're only meant to handle about 16 to 20 on the high side for pressure, and those air pockets are a lot more than that. It's really, really bad. So if you are noticing, obviously, that smell, or you're noticing that you don't have heat when you're idling, or obviously if you notice that you've got drips on the ground that weren't there before, those are things that you're going to want to have checked out right away, especially with the cold weather here, and then it's only going to get worse.
So what's the fix for this?
For her, it looks like she already got it fixed, right? So she says that the hoses were replaced, and that's kind of it. You want to get into a shop immediately if you have an issue, and you want them to figure out where that leak is. The cooling system, again, when we talked about bleeding it, what I mean by that is the system needs to be 100% full.
Right.
All right.
No air pockets.
No air pockets at all. As you have a leak, the system begins to, whatever the percentage of the leak would be, right? So it'd be like having a glass of water that was perfectly topped off versus a glass of water that was only half full.
Right.
Makes sense?
So now you say take it to somewhere immediately, but you don't want to drive it very far, though, right?
You definitely don't want to drive it too far if you have an issue like that. At the first warning signs of that smell or no heat, you're going to want to call a shop and kind of make that determination. It will overheat, and when it overheats, it'll happen very, very quickly. So you'll go from driving at 1 second, everything's fine, and literally the next second, all of a sudden, that temp gauge is going to spike up, and you've got a real issue. What the shop's going to do is they can first just visually look, and then they can pressure test the system if it's not a major leak and there's no signs. But a good shop will know exactly how to handle that. Just get it checked out sooner than later, especially with the weather we're going to be facing soon.
Jessica, thanks for the question. This next question comes from Jennifer from Holyoke, who drives a 2014 Camry. She says, "Help! I had my oil changed recently, and now the place is saying I need a whole bunch of other things done. My dad is a mechanic and says he's never heard of flushing brake fluid. my car only has 80,000 miles. Not sure why I would need over $1,000 in jobs. Brake fluid flush? What's...
All right, so this is kind of a couple part answer, I guess, right? So one, the maintenance, so when a manufacturer, right, so when Toyota made the vehicle, they said, look, at 5,000 miles, we want the owner of the car to do this. At 10,000 miles, we want the owner to do this, and so on and so forth, right? So they created a maintenance schedule. So I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you'll find that at the back of the manual.
At the back of your manual, yeah, it'll be in your manual, and those are basically those are called K services. So when people say, "Oh, well, I need a tune-up," that stuff is all kind of encompassed in that K service schedule. That schedule is made to ensure that you can drive your vehicle as long as possible with as minimal repairs as possible. Sometimes what happens is customers will go in and they'll say, well, you know, I just want my oil changed. And a shop will just change your oil. And that happens a few more times. And as that continues to happen, you've forgotten to service your air filter, your transmission, and all these other things. So finally you take it to, say, a new shop, and they check the vehicle over properly, and then they find, okay, well, all of these things for the past 40,000 miles haven't been done. So that may be what she's up against here. The best course of action, right, to ensure that you have the lowest cost of ownership is to follow that K-service schedule. If you just do basic oil changes, that's great. But an oil change is an opportunity for an experienced technician to check a vehicle over periodically to make sure that you don't have any major issues down the road, and then perform other preventive maintenance. Just changing your oil is great, but you know, just based on how many miles you drive, like, you're gonna have to do other services to your vehicle. Brake fluid breaks down just like engine oil. Brake fluid does a couple things, right? It breaks down, and then two, it absorbs moisture. It absorbs moisture like a sponge. If you were to, on a rainy day, say in the shop where it would maybe be damp, all right, and you were to fill just a little glass with brake fluid about half full, by the end of the day, that damp day, that fluid would just absorb the moisture and it'd be about 3/4 of the way full, or almost completely full.
From the air?
Yeah, just from damp, humid air.
Wow.
It'll absorb moisture. So sometimes when you look at maybe brake fluid, I don't know if you've ever looked under your hood or anything, but
Don't you laugh at me?
Yeah.
Don't you laugh at me right now?
No, it's okay. But the fluid will start to get, it'll start to, as it breaks down, it doesn't lubricate the internals of the brake system like it used to. So what happens is the seals start to break down, and that's what will cause that fluid to get black. Most manufacturers, about every 20,000 miles or so, every 2 years, 20,000 miles, you want to flush out that brake fluid. But your Camry, I don't know exactly. I think it might be 20,000 miles on that. But manufacturers vary. But that's a very real thing. While your dad may be a great mechanic, he unfortunately is just wrong on this one. It definitely needs to be flushed.
I'm a little bit nervous. I don't think I've ever had my brake fluid flushed, and I think I got like 150 on mine.
Really? No, you tested for...
But I'm the guy who was like, wow, my brakes are working fine. Why should I get the brake fluid flushed?
You test it for moisture content, and then obviously fluid quality. But just you're going to be the one that's going to be complaining about the $1,000 bill.
No. Okay. Well, that's a moment to have looked at, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty simple check, and just going forward, just follow the normal maintenance schedule.